Good afternoon, and welcome to Cultural Leaders Group TV. I'm your host, Edwin Baker. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Eddy Dennis, a rising author from Huddersfield, whose debut novel, The Coaster King, captures the raw, unfiltered experience of young adulthood. Drawing from his own time at Goldsmiths University of London and his travels across the globe, Eddy's writing delves into the struggles and the triumphs of his generation. Eddy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'd like to begin just by asking you to tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, some of the things you may have done, etc.
So I come from right here in Huddersfield. I come from Meltham. I went to Meltham Moor Primary School and later Honley High School, then on to Greenhead College. I then went to university, to London, Goldsmiths, and it's there that I had the experiences and saw the things and met the people that really inspired my novel, The Coaster King. Upon graduating, I got into teaching English as a foreign language, and I've since been to Romania, Poland, Vietnam, and Morocco, and I've mainly been doing teaching overseas.
Okay. So you grew up in Meltham.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still live in Meltham?
Oh no, I now live in Paddock in Huddersfield. Yeah.
Okay. So after all your traveling
Mm-hmm.
and everything else, what made you come back to Huddersfield?
Well, it's Huddersfield. I don't know the answer to that one really. Huddersfield has been a sort of way station for me in between adventures, just until I work out what I next want to do.
Well, you're here today
Mm-hmm.
to talk about your debut novel,
Yeah.
The Coaster King.
Okay.
I guess my first question is about, you grew up in Huddersfield.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that growing up in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire,
Mm-hmm.
how's that shaped your perspective as a storyteller?
I don't know how much Huddersfield has had an impact. I mean, I think elements of my childhood has had an impact, and going through school and some of the difficulties of that. But maybe that could have been done anywhere. I suppose having the marked difference between the kind of rural atmosphere of West Yorkshire to going to London and having the kind of urban grittiness of the inner city, that kind of change is something that I explore in the book, and what it's like to be young and to grow up in a sort of boring countryside place, and then have all that change to meet people and places, how it can be exciting at first, but then there are times when you miss it. You miss the calm and the tranquility of the old way.
So I'm curious to find out how you got into writing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular situation? Is there a particular book maybe that has triggered your interest in?
So I've always been interested in writing and reading, and I wrote a lot of poems originally. That was how I first started writing. I made a few attempts at a novel. This is my first completed one. In terms of a book, I was reading Ulysses by James Joyce, which is, of course, it's set in Dublin. It's all set over one day, and it's about a man who visits places within this day, meets various people, and just has conversations. And you think, that can't make for a very good book, but when you read it, it's not like anything I've read before, and it really made me learn that books don't have to be heavily plot driven if they're thematic enough, because Ulysses, the conversations they go into about politics, about religion, about racism, about love, about death, about all these things, and it really builds up this atmosphere. And this is something, I was reading this and I thought, well, can I tell my story So I was young, I still am vaguely, but when I was younger and first going to university, can I explore these feelings of masculinity, technology, love, unrequited love, finding one's place in the world? Can I do it through my story? So my novel, it's set in one 24-hour period. There's a young man named Jack Collins. He's studying politics, and he goes for a walk around New Cross, and he stops in various places along the way, a cafe, a coffee shop, a pub, and he meets various people and he has various thoughts, and there's all these different themes. And it's about sort of being young and trying to find your place, trying to find out why you're here, and there's all these sort of different ideas until there is a chain of events near the end of the book in which he becomes the Coaster King.
Okay.
And it's how that unfolds is the premise of the book.
Does writing come naturally to you, or how do you form these ideas in your head? Do you have some sort of ritual that you go through, or are they habits that you have that you follow?
Not really. It's more just, I often, whenever I get a moment to myself, I try and find ways of exercising my imagination, as it were, and my mind wanders into different places, and sometimes I think, oh, hang on, there's a poem in that, or sometimes there's a short story in that. Sometimes, if I'm lucky, there's a book in that. And sometimes I think, well, that's not really that good a book, and I might park it for later. Or sometimes I think, oh, that's really good. I can't wait to just write it, you know. So from that perspective, writing, for me, it's easy because it's more difficult to keep it up here and not write, you know. It feels like having a heavy backpack on and taking it off, you know, because it's holding things, and then if you can feel really relieved to let it all go, you know?
So what comes first? The idea for a title, or do you write the book first and then come up with a title, or is it somewhere in between?
It's probably somewhere in between. I mean, I had different ideas for a title as I wrote the book, but I feel like there was one that resonates and summarizes the book best.
Right. And why the Coaster King?
The Coaster King, it's all about how he became the Coaster King.
Okay.
Because the Coaster King is the title in which this young man, he gets given it, but largely he gives it himself. And it's to do with drinks coasters that you will find in any pub. And it's kind of the purpose of him, the purpose of the book. It's where it all gets wrapped up towards the end, yeah.
Okay. Well, your book specifically targets young people, especially university students.
Yeah.
And it explores that turmoil that they experience. But what aspects of this generation's pain, should I call it, do you feel are most misunderstood and overlooked?
I suppose the big thing is the advancement in technology that has happened so much in the last 20 years, the mobile phone generation, and how things like social media and phones and the internet, how that's affected my generation. I think it affected it in so many different ways. It's affected love and relationships. We now have dating apps. It's affected communications because we're now more comfortable with, you know, WhatsApping each other than we are with talking to each other. It's affected things like work. There's a big part of the book, I think, job applications and how they can be a nightmare, and how the bureaucracy of them. So yeah, I think that's something that's misunderstood by a lot of people. What it's like to grow up with it, to not know any other way from it than that.
The book, you've clearly stated, is primarily targeted at young people. Do you think it's still a book that would resonate and connect with the older generation?
Yeah, I think there's something in it for everybody, because obviously older generations that had to go through youth to get there. So I think there might be something that reminds them of what it was like to be at that period of their life. But there's also maybe some questions that their generation never asked, you know,
Right.
because the experience of the youth today is different to the experience of the youth 30, 40 years ago. So maybe they would be interested to know the new problems that young people face and how it's changed for younger people nowadays. What are the questions that younger people are asking about the 21st century?
Did you experience many challenges writing the book? I mean, you've talked about the different facets of life that young people experience.
Yeah.
In fact, you use the word pain. So has there been some sort of emotional weight that fueled the book? And how have you managed to negotiate and maybe balance all these different emotions and factors in writing the book?
Well, I feel like writing is the only way I can really express myself. And this can be done in a positive way. I can find the funny side of things. There is a lot of humor in the book. I will let people know this. It's not all
doom and gloom.
It's not all doom and gloom, but it's also funny because it's asking questions about the world we live in. And yeah, I do have to find a certain pain within myself in order to write it, because I don't think every form of art should just be a distraction. I think some things should be reflective of what we go through and the modern world we live in, you know.
What is it particular that you'd like for any individual reading the book to get from reading the book?
I don't know if there's a right or wrong feeling to have from the book, but if people can read it, and you know, I feel like a great part of art isn't what the artist does; it's what people make of it once they go through it. So it's up to them. But if they're entertained by it, or if it makes them ask questions, or if it educates them, or any of those, then I'll be happy enough. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know many, especially first-time authors, will talk about the struggle with being disciplined in finishing a novel.
Yeah.
And actually, finishing a novel is it's a great feat, in my humble opinion.
Thank you.
So, what kept you motivated, and how did you know this was the particular story you wanted to tell?
It was just, as I sort of talked about a bit before, it becomes difficult for me to not write when I have this idea. I had this idea and I was very clear about where I wanted to go with the book. At what time. I knew the ending, I knew the middle, I knew the beginning, and it almost became exciting for me to write more. Like, oh, this bit's coming up, I want to get into that, I have to do this bit first, you know. But I like going back to things after I've completed them, think, oh, that needs a bit of work, I can stretch that more, I can find different things. No, it was an interesting experience, but an enjoyable one.
Okay. Do you think writing a novel is something that everybody could potentially do, or if not, why not?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, in theory, everybody can do it. Everybody can type enough words on paper until a novel is complete. I suppose it's working out what you should write a novel about. Maybe it's sometimes, I don't know how good I am as a writer. It's hard to tell but maybe if you are good at something, it's difficult to know how easy it is for you to do it, because it maybe comes naturally to you in a way it doesn't to other people.
So you've written your first novel now, The Coaster King.
Yeah.
Published.
Yeah.
Have you got others in the pipeline ready to
I've been
be
doing.
released?
I have done a lot of writing since then. I have enough material written for another book, or perhaps a short story collection, something like that. It really depends on where this book leads me. If successful enough, and then maybe it's demand for more, then perhaps I would love to write more. Yeah.
I have some in coming to the end of the interview. Just a few fun, rapid questions,
Sure,
which I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
really want you to think about, just whatever pops into your head.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're writing,
Yeah.
is it coffee or tea, water or juice?
Coffee and maybe orange squash as well. That's
Okay.
the two I would go with. Yeah.
Is it music or is it silence?
Probably music, or maybe like the radio. So bit of conversation, bit of music.
I think you might have answered this one. A book or an author that made you think, ooh, I'd like to try my hand at this.
Well, we went through James Joyce and Ulysses before, so I'll tell you another one.
Okay.
On the Road by Jack Kerouac.
Okay.
I remember, I remember reading it thinking, again, this is so different, and I love the writing style and the rambling conversational poetry to the prose that I had never seen in a book before, and that was so fun to read. And again, the lack of plot, the idea that a book doesn't really need to have lots and lots of narrative if it's fun to read and if it's so interesting in terms of its themes.
If your book was adapted into a film or a series, who would be your dream director, or would you want to direct it yourself?
I have thought about this. I don't know if it's naturally a filmable book, but if I had, maybe Scorsese is one that comes to mind, you know, because it's a bit sort of Taxi Driver sort of vibe going on. But then I also thought Spike Lee would be a great choice, you know. That could be an interesting way of doing it as well.
Two major
Yeah, I'm
there.
reaching a high bar there, aren't I?
Hey, reach for the stars,
Yeah.
friend, reach for the stars. Well, Eddie, we've come to the end of the interview, but I want to say thank you so much for just sharing your journey with us today, for sharing your passion for storytelling, and your dedication for sharing and voicing the struggles of your generation.
It's been a pleasure.
We can't wait to see where your writing takes you next. And if somebody wants to get their hands on your novel, where can they do that?
So it's available. The publisher is Pegasus Publishers, and it's available on their website, but it can be ordered from any of the major book outlets. So W.H. Smith, Waterstones, Amazon, Foils.com.
Okay. And do you have some social media?
Yeah,
handles
the Coaster King. It has its own Facebook page and its own Instagram page, and also Pegasus, Elliott Mackenzie Publishers. They have their own social media: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So it's possible that you might see things published by them about the book on their socials as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks again for joining us today and for sharing your story. To our audience, I just want to thank you for joining Cultural Leaders Group TV today. Make sure that you follow Eddie's work and keep an eye out for his debut release, The Coaster King. Until next time, keep reading, keep writing, keep telling your stories. Goodbye for now, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.